House Arryn is famous for pushing people out moon doors and for breastfeeding for far too long. But that isn't all that there is to them. House Arryn is one of the oldest houses in Westeros, at least the oldest of the Andals, and they have a very interesting history. So let's talk about it right now. This is a potential new series where I will spend a video talking about one of the great houses of Westeros, their history, their famous people, what happened, why are they important, yada yada, but it'll depend on you. Who do you want me to talk about? We're going to start with House Arryn because they're interesting, and not just because of, the creepy. House Arryn can trace its roots back to the Andal invasion of Westeros. The Andals were, of course, an ethnic group from Essos who were made up of a bunch of religious extremists. The Faith of the Seven originates with them, and they were very worried about the Valyrian Empire, the Valyrian Freehold, expanding its borders and getting a little closer to them, a little closer, a little uncomfortable. And so they decided, hey, we think that the Seven, the gods, are telling us that there is another land across the sea that is very close, and we want it. And we think that they're telling us that we can have it, so we're gonna go and invade this other country en masse. And invade they did. The Andals swept into Westeros and caused a lot of issues. Supposedly their weaponry was a little better than the First Men and the Children of the Forest, who currently were residing on the continent. And so the Andals essentially spread like a plague. Something to point out, though, when I say that House Arryn can trace its roots back to the original Andal invasion of Westeros, part of that comes from the fact that the Andals literally first landed in the Vale of Arryn. Of course, at the time, it wasn't called the Vale of Arryn. It was just, Vale, mountain place. I'm sure it had a name. But you can see over here is the Vale, where the Arryns now rule. This is all the big mountainous region, the Vale. And so the Andals are said to have first landed along the fingers over here. A lot of the oldest evidence of them, like art and stuff drawn on shit, 7-pointed stars carved into the stone. It's all over there. Because remember, religious extremism, they would also carve it into them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, the Arryns, of course, are going to claim that they come from ancient Andal royalty. Of course, you got to trust me here. We come from the oldest royalty of the Andals, from Hugor Hill himself. Hugor Hill was basically an old Andal king, possibly legendary. We're not entirely sure. Actually, no, it's Hugor of the Hill. Hugor Hill is the name that Tyrion takes when he's an Essos later, excuse me. But Hugor of the Hill was believed to be the first Andal king who was crowned by the father himself. The father of the 7-pointed star. Yeah, the religious extremism. God gave me the country, so I get it now. Whip-de-fucking-do. So the Arryns say that they actually descend from him, because isn't that fucking convenient? Can't prove it, so here we are. Anyway, as the Andals are showing up on the fingers and they're starting to say like, hey, well, let's start doing some invading, naturally the First Men of Westeros were like, hey, but what if you didn't? And so a bunch of them started to try to organize resistance to the Andals, one of them being House Royce in the Vale. House Royce still exists in the modern day of the, Song of Ice and Fire, but they are vassals of House Arryn. So you can, guess how that went. But at the time, House Royce, they were the kings of the area. I don't remember exactly how big. Just, assume that part of the Vale was at least under them. They tried to organize a resistance against the Andals and started to fight back. And then to counter that, the Andals started forming, not a resistance, they started forming an offensive under the direction of Artis Arryn. But Sir Artis Arryn was known as the Falcon Knight. Get it? Because, the Falcon, it's their sigil. He was supposedly born in Westeros of the Andal stock. So the Andals had been there for a bit. They'd been taking over big chunks of the Vale. But, the First Men were still there. They were still having ownership over chunks of it themselves. And both sides, were fighting. So even though the Andals had control chunks of the Vale, they had started kind of fighting amongst themselves, which is what made House Royce have an opportunity here. So House Royce, under the direction of King Robar Royce, was able to unify a bunch of the First Men kingdoms into, one cohesive army to try to take out most of the Andals in the Vale. And so the armies of the First Men and the armies of the Vale clashed in what would become known as the Battle of the Seven Stars. It was a huge battle. Sir Artis Arryn, the Falcon Knight, led the Andals of the Vale against the First Men, and the First Men were well and truly routed. They were decimated. A dozen of the First Men houses went extinct in this battle, and the Vale was then united under full Andal control. Artus Arryn would be named the King of Mountain and Vale, establishing House Arryn and its dominion over the Vale in perpetuity for thousands of years. Because remember, the Andal invasion happened anywhere from like 8 to 6,000 years ago. So the Andals, they've been here for a while, and they've they've well and truly established themselves. Now, skipping ahead to the end of that period where the Arryns got to be kings, you have the Targaryen conquest, the Targaryen, invasion of Westeros. Not really an invasion so much as there was 3 of them and 3 dragons, but it was a conquest. House Arryn resisted quite a bit and basically became a thorn in the side of Visenya Targaryen. Visenya was kind of the one who kept having to deal with them over and over again. There was initially a big battle by sea. I believe it was a Battle of the Gullet? The battle was near Gull Town. See, I was close. But there was a battle by sea near Gull Town where the Arryn fleet decimated House Targaryen's fleet and took out basically most of it. So in revenge, Visenya took Vhagar and lit up most of the Arryn fleet on fire. Eventually, House Arryn, which at the time was being ruled by the Queen Regent, Shara Arryn, because her son Ronald was very, very young, they basically decided to hole up in the Eyrie. They're like, hey, we're in a mountain, our castle is on top of a mountain, let's just hide up here because, everything is burning. The Targaryen conquest, as you would imagine, involved a lot of fire. But unfortunately, dragons can fly, so mountains aren't exactly impenetrable, and Shara Arryn got the biggest scare of her life when she went out into her Godswood and saw her son, Ronald Arryn, sitting on Visenya Targaryen's lap with Vhagar right there. When he saw his mother, Ronald turned to her and said, hey, the woman has said that I can go fly on her dragon. Can I go please do that, Mom? And Shara looks at Visenya and is like, oh, yeah? And Visenya's like, yeah, is that okay, Mom? Is it cool? Do we have an understanding here? And Shara's like, uh-huh. Yep, we do. And so it was said that Ronald got to fly with Visenya on Vhagar. He rose into the sky as a king, and he landed as a lord because yeah, that is how they surrendered. Visenya did not fuck around. Visenya collected a bunch of the swords from House Arryn. She collected the crowns that they had. They had like a bunch of them. I swear there were like 3 or 4. There was like, the main crown of Mountain and Vale. There was Ronald's like little crown because he was, he's little. I think Shara Arryn also had a crown. But anyway, Visenya collected them all and said, okay, cool, thanks. You bought your membership into our new kingdom. Cool. And then she flew away. Another notable Arryn would come during the Dance of the Dragons. We have Lady Jane Arryn. I will keep it vague for fans of the show, but from, what you've seen so far, Jane Arryn was Rhaenyra's cousin, and actually in the book, they got along and liked each other quite a bit. The show made her a little more aloof, but Lady Jane Arryn supported Rhaenyra the entire dance and would continue to support her family for many years to come. Some years to come. But I do think it's interesting that we have like kind of 2 back-to-back examples of women being in charge of the Vale. That is one area of Westeros where that seems to happen with some regularity, up until the modern day where you have Lysa suddenly in charge after Jon Arryn's passing. Which, of course, brings us to Jon Arryn. So Jon Arryn was the Lord of the Vale, who was childless. He'd had a couple wives, but they'd all passed away, sadly. Like, not his fault. He wasn't doing anything. They just, they passed. And technically, Jon Arryn is the individual who started Robert's Rebellion. It was when Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King, demanded that Jon surrender Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark and, send him their heads, that Jon said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to be an open rebellion, and called his banners in, basically creating like the first like true act of war. Which isn't condemning it. I wouldn't want to give like my foster kids heads to a crazy person either. Jon Arryn would of course go on to become Hand of the King, do kind of a questionable job, though to be fair, he also had a questionable king to serve who was not responsible. So yeah, he didn't do so great, and then he started asking too many questions, and then whoops, he passed away. So that means we got creepy little Robert Arryn down here as the next Lord of the Vale. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Unless, of course, Littlefinger gets him in the book, which might happen. Why is Robert sick all the time? Ooh, I don't know. Anyway, let me know what house you want me to talk about next, and hey, Moondor. Okay, good night.